Fucking hell now. to hold us off. The Nexus is probably going to be going down that one Colossi, and there's a ridiculously lagging GG!
Nice. And those Vikings are going to focus down. All those Colossi are probably going to go down.
Yeah, he doesn't even have Blink yet.
Welcome everybody to the Indie StarCraft Team League. I am Vindicare, and with me today is Jay Morrow. You are going to be watching the consolation match for 3rd and 4th place before we get into the finals. That'll be tomorrow. How are you doing, Jay Morrow?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a good couple of days before I cast with you last time, and I'm excited to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. The last series was actually an all-kill from Team My Intent against Team Impulse. We had some pretty good performances by our two finalists against the two teams that should be meeting again here today. Today we have Impulse actually going up against Team NRG. So this should be a pretty good match. We are going to be starting off on the map Cloud Kingdom. It looks like actually we are going to be seeing a TVP opening things up here on this map.
Yeah, it should be really exciting. Of course, these teams are battling for 3rd place, and I believe they're battling for $30, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, sorry.
Yeah, the prize money is actually being paid out to the top 3 places. There is, of course, still that $50 gift card up for grabs for the season MVP, but that won't be decided until after the finals are actually concluded. So this is for the 3rd place money. And it's also at this point, it's really also for placing. Like you want to say that you got 3rd or 4th place or whatever. There is a lot of bragging rights that are actually that actually play into that. We have a full roster actually for Team Impulse actually showing up today. So NRG should be also equally eager to finish this last game up so that they can see who actually is going to take this whole thing in the finals.
Yeah, it's really good as well. I mean, taking 3rd place, I mean, more than likely we're going to see a 3rd season of the ISTL. So, it definitely gives you bragging rights going into the 3rd season, especially if maybe you play the same team in the 1st round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm eager to see actually how this is if there's rivalries or something that might end up developing as these seasons go on, like you see in some of the more established team leagues. But I think we are actually ready to get this first game underway. We are going to have Intense versus Creation to open things up. Intense coming from Team Impulse and Creation coming from Team NRG. Intense has been doing a lot of streaming lately. I don't know if I haven't actually gotten a chance to see a lot of his streaming, but apparently he's a really good Terran player. But I haven't actually gotten a chance to see him in the ISTL just yet, so this is kind of interesting from Team Impulse to open with him. But the countdown is almost over. We are just loading into this game right now, so we should be getting this first game underway.
Yeah, I really like this as a first map as well. Of course, this is ESP Cloud Kingdom. We're going to have a PVT, so a very, very good map. I like this a lot, especially for this matchup. It allows players to get an early expansion, and they can go for an early 3rd and defend the 2 points, and we can easily see this going to the later stages of this game.
For sure. Starting on here in the bottom left position, we have our red Protoss player coming from Team NRG. He is NRG's Creation.
And spawning in the northeast corner, we do have Impulse Esports Intense as our blue Terran. And again, this is on Cloud Kingdom. Of course, both these players are battling for 3rd place. And, do you think we're going to see another all-kill tonight?
Hopefully not.
I have to say it.
Hopefully not.
I
think at this point we've established that our 2 finalist teams are really good. that's kind of an understatement, but our 2 finalists are really good. So I'm hoping that this matchup will be really evenly matched, just to give the fans that have been watching the ISTL a really good, a lot of build-up. A lot of build-up has been established for these last 2 series, the finals and the consolation match. Respectively. So I'm hoping that this is actually going to go to a Game 7. Then I hope that the finals aren't exactly a sweep either. No one likes it when finals are just completely one-sided.
Absolutely. These teams are going to be battling for quite a bit of money, so hopefully it does go to Game 7. That would definitely give a better showing than he had another all-kill. It looks like Intense is opting to wall off and actually building his barracks behind. I mean, what kind of build do you think we could see behind this?
This is actually kind of a it's a little bit unusual for him to actually go for that supply depot up at the front and then go for the barracks behind. That seems to me like he's going to be going for some sort of like early factory type build, maybe. Just something that's like he's trying to hide a little bit.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll have to see if he goes for that second gas geyser. It's surprising, with the PVT matchup, a lot of players are either going command center first or barracks first, and as well, Protoss are going for early Nexus as well. It's surprising both these players opting to sit on one base, both grabbing one gas geyser. We could see Creation go for the Cybercore expand. It's a very strong opening, especially on a map like this. You want to make sure to have the the decent stalker count, and based on the fact that Creation does have one guy mining from his gas geyser right now, I think we are going to see the Cybercore expand.
I actually really like going for the Cybercore expand as opposed to just the Gateway expand. The difference, if you guys aren't really familiar with it, if you opt to not go for that earlier Assimilator and Cybernetics core, you can drop your Nexus that much earlier, but the Nexus is obviously a lot more vulnerable since you're not going to have Stalkers out to repel things like Reapers or Marines or something of that nature. But the other reason why I like going for this Cybercore expand is that if the Terran is going for something really, really greedy, like an early command center first or something like that, you're able to get out Stalkers to actually put a little bit of pressure on your opponent, not enough to actually kill him, but enough to punish the build. And a lot of Terrans have been really greedy in this matchup lately. It's been like one of the responses that a lot of Terrans have been making towards the matchups as Terrans are pushed further and further into the late game as part of the popular strategies that are normally associated with each matchup.
Yeah, and it looks like Intense is using his gas to get a reactor in the tech lab, so we're probably going to see some sort of 2-racks pressure. This is more than likely not going to be an all-in. He's going to expand behind this as well. But Creation is going to run a probe up here, and I believe this Marine will not be able to kill in time. He should be able to get the full scout off, and here he goes right up the ramp here. Actually going to try and run right to the barracks. Sees 2 additional Marines, sees everything. And now how is Creation going to respond? Is he going to drop 2 additional gateways here? He's definitely going to need more units than just one gateway producing units. There's the second gateway, and I believe we should see a third one here any second.
Yeah, he is just stockpiling those additional resources for that third gate. So there it is. Now the attack from Intense is probably not going to hit until he has Marauders out on the field. Now he could pull a few SCVs just to make this even more deadly, but at this point he is putting himself a little bit behind his opponent so that this attack is going to have to do some damage, or else that earlier Nexus from his opponent is going to put his opponent a little bit ahead of him in the economy game.
Yeah, and Creation has not built a sentry yet. He does have another Stalker on the way, so he's not going to have any sort of energy built up. Of course, Guardian Shield is quite nice earlier. I feel like the Stalker count's definitely going to help him out because he's probably going to try and hit the units as they're running across the map. But of course, we do have Concussive Shell, we do have 2 Marauders, and as well 6 Marines, I believe. 9 Marines now. 3 more join the field, and just a single SCV is coming with this party. More than likely, he's going to try and drop a bunker somewhere, but it looks like actually Intense is moving across the map right now. We do have a 13 supply deficit right now from Creation.
Intense is going to have to be careful, though. I mean, Creation definitely knows that this is on its way. So, Intense doesn't want to, throw away all of these early bio units to, something like a bad force field. So he has to make sure that this isn't, if he's gonna go all in with this, he's got to mean it. Otherwise, he's got to make sure that he doesn't lose all of these units for absolutely no gain. And here comes the initial skirmish just at the bottom of his ramp. Some damage was dealt to a couple of Marines, and one of those zealots did lose all of his shielding. But other than that, just a little bit of a love tap between these two players to start things off here.
Creation has also wasted his only force field available right now, has not warped in any additional sentry, and actually Intense is moving up here, and it looks like Creation's going to try and dive on top of him, trying to micro back and forth, doing a great job of stutter time. Of course, he does not have stamina. He's going to push forward. There are no more zealots on the field, and he's going to lose vision once he goes up to the top of the hill, and that's exactly what happened. Creation is backing to the Nexus here, and I believe Intense could actually push forward here. Again, there are no more sentries available.
That one Stalker is very, very wounded, down to 17 hit points. The shields are just now beginning to regenerate. A single shot from Marauder would have actually finished that Stalker off, but the Stalker was able to actually get away. And as we were able to establish last week in one of our other series, Stalkers do, of course, have families, so keeping that Stalker alive is going to make the family of that Stalker very, very happy.
Intense went for this timing. He sacrificed a lot of economy to do this, and he has not done the damage that he needs. He needed to do some sort of probe damage. He needed to force Creation into a situation where he feels uncomfortable having to pull SCVs, and probes are currently tied, and the command center is now finished on the low ground. So we're in an interesting situation here. I'm trying to see if Intense is going to go for another push here once Stim is completed. Well,
actually, Jay Morrow, the entire time that this is going on, Creation wasn't building any probes, and Intense was making SCVs behind that. So the worker count is only 30 to 33 at the moment, and when that second orbital actually completes, the income will actually be pretty even for both players thanks to that mule economy. And also, Intense was actually taking up the starport behind that, so we are actually going to have our first medevac on the field before we even see the robotics facility actually complete. So, I mean, this is actually pretty good for Intense.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And as well, Creation did have to waste quite a bit of its gas that he could have been using to tech on units to try and make sure that he didn't die here. So that's definitely a bonus on Intense's part. It looks like we do have a robotics bay coming down from Creation, so jumping up to the Colossi tech. And, I mean, I feel like if Intense goes for a stim push with medevacs, he could actually kill Creation off before he would be able to get any Colossi in the field.
Yeah, I'm starting to actually, like, really like what Intense was doing with this build. I mean, this is like a 2-racks... This is a 2-racks pressure build, but it's meant for more for its tech. He wants to get his tech out as early as possible, and the presence of all of those units is really prevented his opponent from going for the high probe count that he would normally be going for off of a 1-gate expand.
Yeah, and we look, Creation is actually going to be behind on upgrades here. Intense has started +1/1. Combat Shields is just about done. Stim has just completed, so I believe he's going to try and go for some sort of lift play. But look, the probe from Creation actually going to run right across the map. Does see everything. Going to get picked off here. But now Creation knows exactly what's going on. Is he going to pull back into his main? Actually, there's a huge drop coming up into the main. There are 5 Stalkers here, of course. They do not have link.
There.
Oh, it looks like he's going to drop right on top of the Robo Bay.
Robo, that is so huge. He's going to lose his Robo for sure. There are Marines and Marauders actually approaching the Natural. There are no units down at the Natural to actually protect any of the probes, so all the probes at the Natural are going to start taking some damage. The drop at the main base is doing a lot of damage. This is not looking good for Creation at all. So much damage has already been done from this drop. He might even lose the Nexus at his Natural, but no, he's not going to lose the Nexus. He's just going to GG out. Beautiful play by Intense.
As you know, what's interesting, when Intense dropped the main, Creation had his units on move command, and his units did not actually engage on the medevac units, so he ended up losing majority of his Stalkers before they actually engaged, so the medevacs were able to just sit there and heal up the remainder of the units. So a little bit of a mistake by Creation. Actually, I don't know if it would have saved him that game, but very well done by Intense. Very aggressive, held his opponent back, and then just pushed him under at the last second.
What I watched right there, Jay Morrow, I watched a very tightly knit sequence of events that were all planned out by Intense. He had that game played out exactly the way that he had calculated it to. He was going to open with that pressure, prevent probe production, going to keep his opponent on just gateway units because he doesn't have the economy to tech up to Cybernetics Core, or not Cybernetics, but Twilight Council, Charge, Robotics Facility, that sort of thing. Kept him on unupgraded gateway units, and then hit him with Stim and Medevacs right after that. I mean, it was just beautiful. The whole thing was just timed out beautifully. And I'm trying to think of what Creation could really have done better. I think he really needed to shut down those initial units and make sure that he didn't burn that one force field that you were talking about. I think that one force field might have been what decided that whole thing right there.
A lot of top players right now are currently getting a second observer out, and I really like that. I feel like that would help Creation quite a bit to really get a visualization of what Intense was doing or where his position was, because he had an idea. He knew the drop was coming, but he didn't realize how big the drop was. It was 2 full medevacs units. Of course, they had Stim and Combat Shields and Concussive Shell, so if he would have had that second observer, I think it would have helped, and a couple additional gateways would have been pretty nice. He had a little bit of money stockpiled, and it kind of hurt him. I mean, he really tried to jump tech up into the robotics bay. And Intense, I mean, even if he didn't kill off Creation there, he was doing so much damage that he could have taken a third. He already had 1-1 on the way. He already had Starport tech, so I really feel like he would have been in a great position.
He totally shut down the Colossus play, too, because he was just able to walk in and snipe that robotics facility immediately. And the thing is, you said that, like, if he had a second observer, maybe he would have seen the fact that that was 2 medevacs full. But the nice thing about medevacs is that you don't need to commit with all of your medevacs right away. If you see that your opponent is positioning themselves in such a way that a double medevac drop is too risky, like you'll lose the medevacs,
right?
Well, then he could have just, like, hit the natural and kept the medevacs there and done damage to the natural and kind of, like, done a little bit of a dance with his opponent, because the gateway units, that's one of the things about unupgraded gateway units. So when I say unupgraded, again, this is really because I'm saying that they don't have blink, they don't have charge.
Sure.
It's really like naked gateway units. Those need to stay together. You need to have the sentries with the zealots, with the stalkers, in order to compete with Marines and Marauders, especially when they have Stim. So he needed to keep his army all together, and the Marines and Marauders could really just be in 2 places at once. And it's a very difficult very difficult attack to hold if your opponent is positioning himself very well. And Intense was that entire time. He knew exactly how to attack his opponent on that map.
Yeah, he had his army split really, really well. I really wish I would have checked the army supplies before they engaged. I wanted to see if Intense had a huge lead.
I think it was about a 20 supply difference, if I'm not.
That makes sense. I mean, another weapon would have been very, very nice.
Yeah, so that is actually going to conclude game one of this series. Again, this is the best of 7. This is Team Impulse versus Team Energy. This is the consolation match for 3rd and 4th place if you guys are just joining us. This is the ISTL with Vindicare and Jay Morrow. The finals are going to be tomorrow, so the entire time that you guys are watching this, just keep in mind that we have our final match actually coming up tomorrow between Western Wolves and My Intent. So that should be amazing. I'm actually really looking forward to that, but I'm really looking forward also to just seeing who Energy is going to be sending out next. It is definitely going to be a Terran player from what Marine's actually telling me, so we're going to be seeing a TVT.
That should be quite interesting. I wonder what map he'll pick based on, a TVT. Map choice can mean a lot. It definitely can display what kind of strategy you're going for. I mean, with such a broad map, we have Daybreak, we have Cloud Kingdom, Tal'Darim, Calm Before the Storm, Antigua Shipyard, Metropolis, Belshir, and Shakuris, along with Cloud Kingdom, which we just saw.
We also don't have any rules against repicking maps.
Oh, okay.
That was actually something that I found out. I was really surprised when I found out about that rule, or lack of a rule, early on in the season. So we do have the map veto from Impulse. It is going to be Tal'Darim Altar. So we're not going to be seeing Tal'Darim Altar, which is nice because I don't like seeing TVT on Tal'Darim Altar anyway. That map is just too open, Jay Morrow. I don't like TVT maps where you just can't play mech on it. I just don't. It's like if you can't play mech in a TVT, well then there's only so many things you could really go for. It's really just going to be like Marine Tank or straight Bio or possibly even Sky Terran, but no Terran goes Sky Terran these days, and it always makes me sad because I love seeing Sky Terran.
Based on picking a Terran versus Terran, I'm going to assume we're going to see Daybreak. Daybreak's a pretty good map to pick. It has a wide variety of strategies. You can try and do a lot of different things. I mean, that's a pretty good map overall, so I assume maybe Daybreak's probably a pretty good pick on Energy's side.
I'm thinking we might see Antigua Shipyard or Entomb Valley. That's probably whenever I've been seeing TVT as the matchup choice. Those are the two maps that I see most often from the players that are choosing the matchup. I'm not quite sure why that is. It could just be that those maps have very specific dynamics for how they play out for Terran versus Terran. The control of the middle being such a huge factor on Antigua Shipyard. And the layout of the natural probably being the most determining factor in Entomb Valley. So players that are really familiar with how those maps play out could have a huge advantage in Terran versus Terran against players that aren't as crisp with it. So we are actually going to have MLG Antigua Shipyard. So I like being right for once, Jay Morrow. This is going to be the map of choice. And like I just said, the most dominant match or predominant map feature on this map is the center watchtower. That smoke surrounding the watchtower, and the fact that watchtower is on high ground, it really is. Whoever can control that in the TVT with siege tanks really has control over the entirety of the middle. It's really difficult to outmaneuver your opponent if he has a fortified position on that watchtower. So that's normally what I've seen. That's normally what I've seen play out on this map. We are going to have a TVT. There it is. Okay, so we are going to have Intense going up against Coma from Team Energy. I'm going to take a quick moment just to look at this dude's profile. He is a rank 1 Masters on the North American ladder with 228 wins and 183 losses. So I haven't actually seen this guy before, so that's a pretty scary record, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Coma picking this map, I'm really curious, what is he going to do with it? Is he going to go for some sort of Banshee opening? Is he going to go for a greedy 1 command center open? It's really hard to say. The metagame for TVT is all over the place. You can do a lot of different things as long as you pay attention and do good scouting. You can pretty much open it any way you want.
Yeah, the sky's the limit in TVT. It's one of the reasons why people like it. It's also one of the reasons why people don't like playing TVT, because there's just so many things that you can go up against. There's so many ways the matchup can play out. You guys think that ZVZ or PvP sometimes could be a pretty diverse matchup? Not next to TVT. TVT's got so many builds that people can go for. So the countdown has actually begun. We are at 2 seconds in. Once again, if you guys are just joining us, this is the ISTL. It's going to be Game 2 coming up. TVT on Antigua Shipyard.
And of course, Impulse Esports is up 1 game right now.
Yeah, this is a 1-0 for Team Impulse. And here we have, spawning in the top left position at Antigua Shipyard, is the man that put them up 1-0 in this series. He is Impulse Intense.
And then spawning down in the southeast corner, we do have Energy's Coma as our red Terran. Of course, trying to bring the game or the series back, currently down 0-1.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of marine, heavy marine openings or marine builds on this map. I haven't seen much else actually in terms of the way of. I've seen a lot of early Banshee commitments, like they'll go for like things like Cloak or something like that. But I very rarely see people go for something other than big marine combat shield stim timings in the mid game on this map. So that's what I actually think I want to see from both of these players. We have Koma actually going for opting not to go for that wall off. He's getting that earlier supply depot right next to his refineries. While we do have a wall off coming up here for Intense. Now, one of the things about the way that they're laying out these supply depots is that if Intense was going to be going for some kind of big Hellion type build, which is what you might commonly see in like a mech opening, Koma is actually relatively vulnerable to that sort of build, whereas if Intense is going for this full wall off, he isn't. But that hasn't been a super popular strategy, but that was something that a lot of people had to take into consideration about this time last year when like Blue Flame Hellions and the Slayer's build was so popular in TVT.
It's a really good point to say. I mean, I always wonder why people wall off over not walling off. I really don't see too much benefit either way, unless you're. I guess I really don't see a benefit in not walling off unless you're trying to hide, some sort of add-on you're going to throw onto the barracks. You know what build honestly missed more than anything on this map is the 2-port Banshee at like the third base or like the base to the right or to the left. It would be left of Coma. Those builds were just.
Did you say you missed that, J Mario?
I miss watching it. It's just.
You're not supposed to miss those types of builds. What's wrong with you?
I haven't seen it in a long time, and it was really entertaining to see the first few times just to see how frustrating it was to watch somebody lose to it.
Well, we actually are probably going to look... It looks like we're going to have Buddha's favorite opening in this matchup, which is going to be a command center first before second supply depot. Buddha, of course, being another one of my co-casters, the coach for Team Impulse. That's probably going to be... he's probably like trying to encourage his players to go for that opening. So we have mirrored openings coming from both players here. Gases expands command centers before second supply depots. We haven't taken any sort of gas yet, and that supply depot is down for Intense a little bit earlier than his opponent. So this is, again, both players have like even supply counts going for the exact same build. No deviation from either side so far.
I'm waiting for one of them to either drop 2 additional barracks or go for some sort of gas time here, because that's really going to give us an idea of where they're going to be heading. Intense dropping his second barracks, and looks like Coma's still... There we go. There's the additional 2 barracks. So Coma going up to 3 racks, and looks like Intense is just going to go 2. There's the third one. So exact same builds all the way through.
And again, these are heavy marine styles coming from both players here. We definitely could be seeing something like Tech Labs being dropped down on some of those barracks and going for some Marauders or something similar like that. But, I mean, this is what I've been seeing on this map a lot, and there's a lot of good reasons for it. This map is so friendly to Terran drop play because of that double ramp that leads up from the low ground where the middle is into the main base. It makes it so easy for you to move medevacs with bio units all across the map and do all sorts of damage to your opponent that way. So the mobility is such a huge factor in TVT just in general, and on this map especially, I feel like this style is probably probably the best style you can actually go for all around.
Yeah, it's very safe. I mean, it's very safe. You have 3 racks, so any sort of timing is going to get negated very, very easily. We don't see any factory yet. Both players are sitting on 3 racks, and I mean, this is insane. They're doing the same exact thing, both producing 2 Marines, 2 SCVs, and both getting Tech Labs. And what I like from Coma is he is actually dropping his next supply depot in the smog. Very, very smart thing to do. Like you were talking about, drop play is very, very prevalent on this map, so why not drop it in an area where you don't have vision?
Yeah, but the thing is that everybody knows that smoke is actually there, so when you know your opponent's going for drop play, that's like the first place you expect. It's like, oh, where's he going to drop me? Well, probably in the smoke, because that's where everyone always drops, because it's such a convenient place to do it. So we finally have a deviation actually coming up from both players. We have from our Intense player, we have 2 reactors actually being dropped on both of those barracks, and for Coma from NRG, we have no additional add-ons going down for him. He's just continuing to produce Marines. We have a move out of Marines towards the center watchtower. Supply is at 42-43, so a slight advantage for Coma at the moment, who has gotten his first engineering bay down a little bit earlier and is going for that +1 infantry upgrade sooner than his opponent is.
Yeah, and they're both at the same point. They're both getting +1 combat shields. 2 additional reactors were dropped. And I feel like Intense is feigning a little bit of aggression here. He's building his reactors. Players always talk about when your reactors are constructing, that's your most vulnerable point. So you have to be really careful right now. He's just making sure to move out. He's going to run his Marine up here, scout out, make sure that Coma's still there, and then he's probably just going to return home. He's like, okay, I know where you are. I already have my reactors down. I'm getting +1. I already have combat shields on the way. And now I'm just going to return home. And there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Nope. both players are now following this up with this factory. So this is going to be the Marine. It's probably going to be a Marine tank type build leading into the mid game. And again, this is where the center watchtower position becomes so important, is that once siege tanks enter the field, siege tanks are obviously such a huge piece of the puzzle for maintaining map control, especially in the Terran versus Terran matchup, that once these siege tanks actually hit the field, whoever can take this watchtower first, putting aside the possibility of heavy drop play, whoever can take control of this watchtower first really has a kind of a dominant foothold on the map. So really eager to see who's actually going to be going for that first. But it might be that we have medevacs coming out on the field for Coma before even siege mode actually gets started. There is a reactor going down on that factory, so he is opting to not go for siege tanks immediately. And from Intense, that we have the same thing going down. Factory with a reactor. This is going to be a huge Marine medevac, build in the mid game. And this is not my favorite thing to watch, just as a spectator, because it really is just huge Marine battles that we're going to have.
Yeah, and it's really going to depend on positioning. I mean, both these players are very high-level players, so I'm sure we're going to get to watch some very, I don't want to say intense, but intense battles coming down to just very, very slight position. One thing I'd like to note, Intense delayed his third and fourth gas quite a bit, so I feel like he's going to be a little bit gas-starved going up to the siege tech. I mean, he delayed it quite a bit. Coma's was a bit earlier, so I feel like Coma's going to be able to produce medevacs at a much quicker rate. We'll have to see if that really affects Intense's overall composition.
I really like this move from Coma here, putting down that sensor tower, recognizing that he and his opponent are going for very, very similar styles. The one thing that could really screw all this up for Coma is if he gets Marines dropped into his SCV line. So he has that watchtower there that is going to make it very difficult for Intense to actually approach Coma's base from that position, which means he only really needs to cover. I mean, look at that sensor tower placement from both players now. It really keeps a good eye on roughly 2/3 of the aerial pass leading into their base.
It's pretty crazy. I'm wondering if these players are messaging each other, just trolling us a little bit, making sure, like, hey, let's just both build a sensor tower. Okay, start siege mode now. Because, I mean, this is insane. They're just back and forth.
Yeah, they're so even. Well, it does look like we might actually have our first real engagement of this match. This positional advantage goes to Coma, who does have that concave up at the top of the ramp. He did stim first, of course, so Intense is going to have stim lasting a little bit longer for his Marines, but only 2 medevacs for both sides here, so each stim is going to be a huge drain on the energy for those medevacs.
One thing to note, Coma's actually down 15 Marines right now. I feel like Coma's going for heavier medevac, heavier siege tech. His siege tech is already done. A third command center is on the way. I feel like we're going to see a command center drop from Intense any second here, just based on the fact that they are going back and forth. But Coma's tech's a little bit better here. His siege tech is done. He's been producing medevacs a little bit quicker. He's actually up to 3 right now. I think he has another one in production. Yeah, he's another one in production as well. And so I feel like Coma's going to be a little bit stronger in the later stages of the game, though his Marine count's going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah, I know where all those resources were going for those Marines. He is up 8 workers right now, but that's not going to matter if he loses his entire army over on this side of the map to Intense. Intense does have a concave advantage, but siege mode is already in place for Coma. That siege tank is doing a lot of damage to the Marines of Intense, but Intense's superior Marine count allows him to come away with the victory in that engagement, and now the supply is 112 now to 98. We do have Coma having some units up at the top of his ramp, and he does have a siege tank there, so I think he might be able to hold off the attack, but not if he goes down to the low ground. He should fall back to the high ground where he has a positional advantage over his opponent.
And there's our first scan of the game, I believe. These players have been doing a great job of just basing it off of their very little information that they have. Intense has now had his third base already placed down. It's constructing as well. Coma's is now done. He's probably going to move that over in just a second here. But during that engagement, we do have an 800 resource lead for Intense right now. The one thing to note for Coma, one thing he has in his favor, he does have 2-2 much closer than his opponent does.
Yeah, Coma, because he was opting for that lower Marine count and higher worker count, he does have a superior economy to his opponent. He should have his third base, unless Intense actually continues with this aggression, the third base should actually be finished around the same time that Intense's is. That is so hard to say. We have 4 medevacs actually loaded up completely with Marines. He is going to go for a huge drop. Intense is getting that those siege mode tanks down on the low ground to cover those Marines as they land, dropping right on the sensor tower. So Coma definitely knows what's going on over here, but that is such a strong position for Intense. Siege tank is going up in position in the middle of his base, but there's not a lot of room for Coma to maneuver.
Coma actually did a drop at the third of Intense, did very little damage, killed a couple SCVs, but then was forced out here. Now Intense is in a great spot. This is one of the biggest issues with TVT on Antigua, is the spot that Intense is in right now. It is so hard to break this, especially when you're pushing units on the low ground and the high ground. Coma having to forced to lift his factory and not able to produce any more tanks. Now the Marines are stemming and running behind the mineral line, actually doing quite a bit of damage, getting a couple SCV kills here, and now actually forcing Coma to actually push into the corner here. Intense is going to lift up here. I kind of like this, you know, not overextending. He did the damage he needs. Now he's just going to pick up and go home.
He has taken a 20 supply advantage during all of this.
Wow.
The one difference really is that Coma has gone for that second factory. The second factory is on fire, of course, so Coma needs to get some SCVs over there to put out those fires immediately. But, excuse me, Intense does have his second factory now as well as an armory, so he is definitely macroing up and teching behind this, going for a higher tech unit composition in the later portions of this game. And the one big difference, though, also is, I said earlier that Coma was going for that higher SCV count for a superior economy, but it does look like he has fewer resources actually in his main and natural, so he'll probably need to take a fourth earlier than Intense will.
You know, honestly, I was just going to say that Coma should take the center right now. He should try and take the center back and try and hold a little bit to, you know, scare his opponent off. Actually, Coma going for 3-3. I'm not sure if I like this. You know, of course, he's been ahead on upgrades, but he's investing quite a bit of resources that he could really use to construct more of an army. Intense is just kind of poking around. He has a fourth on the way. Intense is in such a great spot. He's supply capped at this point. He's got a much higher count or army count than his opponent, 74 Marines to 54, and 8 tanks versus 5.
If Coma can hold on for a little while here, J. Morrow, if he can close that supply deficit, those superior upgrades will be a huge boon for him. But not if Intense kills him right here. Intense needs to do some serious damage unless he wants to fall behind on upgrades and army count later. We do have these Marines and Siege Tanks actually running into the third base location, though Siege mode is finished before those units can actually even get into position to repel any of these Marines. This is a huge positional advantage for Intense. He cannot run up that ramp. A lot of Marines have actually been killed on that ramp, just butchered by the siege tanks that in siege mode, and a lot of siege tanks are actually being killed in the process here. 200 supply to 115. Coma calls GG.
Wow, that Intense had great positioning on top of the ramp right there.
Yeah.
He had the most beautiful positioning ever. He prevented his opponent from being able to run up the ramp. And then when he tried to move up the ramp, he tried to run to the right to get out of the range of him, and it didn't work. He just started getting bombarded by more shells and lost the majority of his army. So Intense doing a great job. I'm surprised that he didn't have a supply depot there. I expected Coma to have a supply depot at the third at the rocks just to give him a little vision, make sure that he knows where his opponent's positioning is.
You'll notice, too, also that Intense had a sensor tower in that very same location, watching that very same spot on his base. I mean, that was such a good position for Intense to be in with those siege tanks. Why do you keep calling them siege mode? Siege tanks, excuse me. That is such a good position for him to actually be in that you'd think that the best thing Coma could do is just to not let Intense get into that spot, but he had such a huge supply advantage that Coma was a little nervous to actually move out on the map because he knew that if he got caught out in the open, his opponent's superior Marine and tank count would have just completely overwhelmed him. So some hesitation on Coma to actually really secure the middle like you were talking about. Had he secured that middle watchtower at any point during the game, he could have held it with a lower army count because that position is so good. And the one thing about TVT, guys, is that positioning is such a huge deal in this matchup. Huge deal in this matchup. That's why everyone refers to it as a chess match.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, Intense impressed me very much, though, in multiple reasons. He kept putting aggression out while he was doing things. He was like, okay, I'm throwing down my reactors. I'm going to push out. I'm going to feign some aggression, make sure you're in an uncomfortable position. And then he goes, okay, well, I'm going to push again. This time I'm going to take a fourth base. Okay, this time I'm, dropping another factory. I'm getting more barracks. He did a great job of making sure that who was playing? I'm so sorry.
It was Coma.
Coma, thank you. So that Coma wasn't able to push out at all. So I mean, I'm impressed. I mean, he's up 2 games. He's on a roll at this point too.
Yeah, Intense is he demonstrated like everything you were just talking about him right there about how he uses his aggression but builds behind it. He did that in the previous game too. He's very, very methodical. Like I said before, the entire game is nothing but a sequence of events that are carefully calculated by Intense. He plays the game out exactly the way that he wants to. And Coma, he was mirroring what Intense was doing that entire time. And it kind of felt like in the end there that Intense just had that whole thing planned out a little bit better. He always seemed like he was a little bit of a step ahead of his opponent. And because their styles are so similar, Intense perhaps maybe had a little bit more experience with that style than Coma did, which is why he was able to come away with that. But there could have been some other things that were involved there too.
Sure.
But like I said, Intense has been streaming a lot lately. He's been practicing his builds, really getting in shape, so to speak, as shape as you can be as far as esports athletes go for this tournament. And I'm actually surprised now that I'm watching Intense play why I haven't seen him more in this tournament. Why I haven't seen more of him throughout the ISTL season, because he's definitely a pretty solid Terran player. So I am wondering how NRG is actually going to deal with Intense, who's looking pretty good right now.
Looks like they're actually going to pick another Terran, so we're going to have another TVT, and of course, like you said, map choices are available, so you can actually repick Antigua, and it looks like it's going to be in Tome Valley. So both your picks, very nice call.
I don't know why it is, J Morrow. I don't like either of those maps really to play TVT on. Now I understand the maps. When I'm watching them, TVT doesn't really seem all that different. But when I'm playing on those maps, just because I'm a little bit more positionally. I tend to play a lot more positionally with TVT. I like mech. I like high siege count. Like I don't mind those big siege tank stalemates that people say that they can't stand about TVT. I actually like those. So I really can't figure out why these two maps, which is so hard to establish good siege tank lines, are the ones that are so popular in the ISTL for TVT. Oh, we have a Lucky Fool coming out here. Okay, so I don't think we're going to be seeing a mirror like we saw last time. Lucky Fool definitely plays his own style, and I think that this is actually a pretty good choice to come out against Intense, who he doesn't. For all of what we've been saying about Intense so far, he doesn't do anything crazy. He's very straightforward with the way that he plays.
Yeah, playing safe is definitely something that a lot of pro players fall back on, and there's nothing wrong with doing it. It definitely helps them out, especially when they see very bizarre builds. They're like, okay, well, I'm still going to do exactly what I was planning on doing, no matter what you're going to do. Whereas, when you're doing something a little bit wonky, a little bit different, you have to kind of react around it, maybe change it up a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing is that Lucky Fool is one of those guys that you're going to have to react to and change things up a little bit. And I'm speaking more from watching him play TVZ, but from what I've seen of Lucky Fool so far, he definitely has his own style, the way that he likes to play. He's a lot like Shinya in that regard. Shinya, the guy that we saw play last time, if you were watching the ISTL, he has his own style that he plays Protoss with, and he makes it work. Lucky Fool is just like that as a Terran player. He has his own style, and he definitely makes it work. So will he be able to make his style work against Intense? I have no idea what I'm going to be seeing out of these guys, but it is going to be on MLG and Tomb Valley. This is going to be Game 3 coming up in this best of 7 between Impulse versus Team NRG. Guys, if you like what you are seeing, please hit that follow button up at the top of the stream. And also, we have a donation pool. You can actually click at the bottom of the stream. There's a donation pool if you like what you see and if you want to support the ISTL even just a little bit for next season. There's a little place at the bottom of the stream where you can do that. But up here, spawning in the top left, we have from Team Impulse, our blue Terran player. He has put Team Impulse up 2-0 so far in this best of 7. Can he do it one step further? We have Team Impulse's Intense.
And then spawning down the bottom left corner, his team is currently down 0-2. We do have NRG Lucky Fool as our red Terran. So I'm wondering if this map is people like it because of the similarities like with Antigua. You have the center watchtower that's very important, but as well you do have the back area to come around if you wanted to try and do a sneak attack. So I'm wondering if Terran really like to have the center watchtower just to have good vision to make sure your opponent is not able to move across the map without you really realizing it.
The center watchtower is not something that I'm going to say you can just ignore on this map, but it is not nearly as important as it is on Antigua Shipyard, and there's a few reasons for why. There is this backdoor attack path, especially in these two positions. With this watchtower, it's probably not even going to come into play until way into the late game, because you can just walk easily around its vision. But also, that watchtower, even though it's surrounded by that brush, it's not on the high ground. So you don't get that high ground positional advantage. It's like a double whammy of oh, I'm on a high ground, so I have to have vision of you. But then you have the watchtower, so you already have position of me, which is why on Antigua Shipyard that's such a huge deal in TVT. You can't assault into the middle without taking that initial volley from siege tanks. It is such a huge positional advantage on that map. On this map, not so much.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could definitely use the back path, and it looks like actually Lucky Fool is going to be the first one to scout. It looks like he's heading directly to cross spawn. Nothing wrong with that. The one thing I do like, I've actually been reading about this. Somebody posted something about it, but essentially they scout cross a lot just because, especially on maps like this where you can take the center watchtower, because you're able to see if they're scouting you. So if he sees Intense coming out of one of the shadows, well, he knows exactly where he is, and he should know the timings. So you know, just having a little bit of game insight and timings can actually assist you with scouting even quicker.
That might happen anyway, J Morrow, because these two SCVs are going to cross faster right now over here at the bottom of the ramp for the top right location. So there they go. There's a little kiss from both SCVs. We have a command center going down for Intense. Is that actually? No, it's not a command center first. That's actually another one of. That's again. This is the one Rack's command center before second supply depot. This is Impulse. This is Buddha's favorite expansion timing. We have from Lucky Fool also a gasless expand command center, but following the second supply depot, so he's continuing SCV production, but his command center is going to be a little bit later. Yeah,
so I mean, I don't know the I guess the points of doing either or. I guess you're allowed to continue SCV production and Marine production as opposed to maybe getting your commands a little early. Is that kind of the idea with it?
I mean, I was having this conversation with him too. I'm like, does it really make that huge of a difference? He was convinced that it does. I personally think that like a one racks expand is a one racks expand, but there is a slight difference. You get that second orbital that much sooner, but you're also able, if you are Lucky Fool with this particular build, because you're continuing SCV production, it allows you to get gas production that much earlier, which is what he's actually going for. So he has both gases actually taken, whereas Intense is going for that 3 racks build that he was doing before, but no additional tech following that up. So we're going to have a factory being dropped by Lucky Fool right now. Is he going to be going for an earlier siege mode timing, or is he going to follow this up with Banshees, do you think?
It's hard to say at this point. We'll have to see if he's going to drop. I mean, the 2 gas makes me think Starport. Almost guaranteed, but...
Ooh, there's a third gas going down, though, J Morrow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're going to jump up to Starport here. I was going to say, with 2 gas, he might drop a couple extra barracks and start teching, but it looks like we are going to see a Starport lined up here, I believe, from Lucky Fool. And there's, a second factory, so just as you would like to see, we're looking to see some mech.
Now, I've said before that I don't like this map for mech, but these positions, mech actually plays out a lot better because you don't have to cover. Just look at the map. If you're spawn cross spawn, look how wide that is. Look how many areas that you can just have your tank line flanked by, and then compare that to where we are currently with our players spawning in horizontal spawns. Mech is so much better in these positions. That backdoor hallway. Oh, if siege tanks are already in position, there is no way you can go through that backdoor hallway with bioforces. There's just no way. You would get absolutely crushed by siege tanks.
So based on what we saw from Intense in the previous game, we saw him go 3 racks. We saw him do this early combat shield, this heavy Marine style. How do you think it's going to face up against, a mech player? I mean, and the scan from Intense does see both factories, one with reactor and one with tech lab. Sorry to interrupt, but so what do you think what will happen here?
I mean, it's all going to come down. It all comes down to positioning. If in mech, it is 90% positioning and 10% patience. It's all going to come down to how Lucky Fool plays this out from here. In these positions, I feel it's the mech player's game to lose. And I'm not saying that Lucky Fool has a huge advantage or whatever, but I'm just saying if he plays this out well, if he's able to counter Intense's movements with those bioforces, he has the superior unit composition. It really all comes down to, can Intense catch Lucky Fool in a bad spot, or can Lucky Fool take his third base here and hold it and build up that heavy tank Thor Viking count where bioforces just get incinerated by it. And a lot of it comes down to the timing. So can Intense punish this brief window where Lucky Fool doesn't have siege mode? This is actually going to be a huge timing.
Wow.
But I think with that bunker already in position, I feel if he scouts that these Marines are on the way, he will be able to actually hold this. Now, the Hellions do see it. He needs to get some SCVs over to repair that bunker immediately, but Intense actually pulls back, saving Lucky Fool the effort of having to make sure that he repairs that wall.
I like that from Intense. He killed the 2 Hellions. He said, you know what? I did a little bit of damage. I lost a couple units. I got to pull back here. He saw the two tanks. Of course, tanks, even out of siege mode, do quite a bit of damage. They don't have the AoE damage, but it definitely makes up for it. I have a question for you, though. So Lucky Fool is currently on 3 factories, 2 with tech labs. Can he support something on this off of 3 gas?
Three gas, perhaps not, but definitely two base. There goes the fourth gas geyser. So he is able to support three factories off two base. I would even go so far as to say that he could maybe support 4 or 5 just on that initial max out. Now the thing is about mech is that it all is really dependent on that initial max out. I was going to tell you that like I actually didn't really like that decision by Intense to actually fall back, because if he had traded those Marines for those 2 siege tanks, he actually comes out ahead, because siege tanks take so much longer to produce and are so much more expensive than just a handful of Marines. And the thing is too is that Intense, look at this, Intense is going to be able to go straight for that third base, and there is nothing that Lucky Fool can really do about it for the next few minutes, because he's stuck playing a defensive game until he can get that superior unit composition out, which if you are the bio player allows you to stay a base above your opponent. It's kind of like playing a ZVT at this point, whereas like, if you're the bio player, you want to always stay a base ahead of your opponent, but you have to make sure that you don't trade inefficiently with him and that you don't walk into like a position that you don't want to play.
You know, I'm surprised from Lucky Fool we don't see a third command center coming down, or even an attempt to break down these rocks. Is he going to go for some sort of 2-base timing here, or is he going to expand here in just a moment?
I'm really not too sure at this point. I feel because we don't have any, we just have straight siege tank production coming up from Lucky Fool. I don't think we're going to have any sort of timing attack coming up just yet. You can't push with just siege tanks. You need buffer units for them. But he's pretty much devoting almost all of his factory production time to just siege tanks, and he isn't going for upgrades though, Jimaro. So it might be a 2-base timing and not a 3-base timing with upgraded mech. It could be a 0-0 2-base timing with a very high mech unit count. I'm not really sure at this point what would probably be better in these positions. It's all depending on how Intense is actually going to follow this up.
I like what Intense is doing behind this. He's got a third base. 1-1 is just finishing up for him. He's starting 2-2. He's just focusing on getting a ton of units there now. Medevacs, he already has the tech out. And Intense is probably going to scout the third base here. He did just stem a Marine over there. He's going to scout it out and see, okay, he's not on a third base. So that means he's going to probably go for some sort of timing here. We still don't see a third command center from Lucky Fool yet. So he's just kind of turtling on this second base. He's going to mine out pretty quick with those mules helping eat away at the minerals. He's going to have to push here shortly.
It does look like he has taken down all of his wall, and there it goes. The mech army is moving out. Now, again, if Intense can actually catch this with good splits and positioning, he can pick off lots of things and then run away, but that is a big commitment by Intense to run into that tank line, and look at those siege tanks. It's completely annihilating the bio forces of Lucky Fool, or of Intense, excuse me, Lucky Fool siege tanks, annihilating the bio force. That completely backwards. So the supply is now 128 to 99. We have no defense. We really don't have very many units at all for Intense to actually hold this attack off. This is looking really good for Lucky Fool.
Yeah, Lucky Fool is going to get all these SCVs lined up. Blue Flame is just about to finish these tanks. They're just finishing up. They're going to clean up all these SCVs. Behind this, Intense does have a fourth base, so if he does hold, he could macro up. But it looks like Intense is down to 62 supply right here. And I feel like him engaging at Intense's ramp, or excuse me, Lucky Fool's ramp was a huge mistake. He overextended there. He was 1 base ahead of his opponent. If you just want to pull back and kind of poke at his opponent, force a couple sieges on the way, he would have had a decent enough force to compete with it.
I mean, that's the whole... what did I say about
right.
TBT? It's 90% positioning and 10% patience. That doesn't only apply to the mech player. That has a lot to do also with how the bio player is going to play this out. I mean, all of my knowledge from bio versus mech comes from watching Marine King play and watching Marine King over and over again charge into tank lines, just get his forces absolutely crushed by it. And this is pretty much what's happening to Intense so far. I think this position that Intense is in is almost unbreakable at this point. Even if he manages to clear out those siege tanks, he's going to lose too many units by the time that he's able to actually clear them out. And there's even SCVs over here to repair the injured siege tanks. There's the GG. Good position from Lucky Fool, really showing why I am a fan of mech in TBT. Thank you for not losing that game, Lucky Fool, and making me seem like a fool.
And as well, he did shut down Intense. Intense was on a 2-kill streak. He just lost it, so now it is now 2-1. NRG took 1 game back, so going into the 4th game now, and it's looked like we might go to some of the later stages of this series.
I hope we do, Jay Barrow. And the thing is, Lucky Fool is good enough that we actually could. He's like I said, he's a really good Terran player. He has his own style that he plays. What did I'm on a roll here. Because I said we were going to see Antigua Shipyard, we were going to see Tomb Valley, and that Lucky Fool was not going to play the same mirror style we saw out of Coma on Antigua. And I'm still saying it. I like the way Lucky Fool plays Terran. I mean, Lucky Fool has his own style. He really likes to utilize all sorts of different mech timings. He used a mech 2-base timing which is what I've seen from him in Terran versus Zerg. Also, he definitely has a very solid understanding of how to utilize those units, what timings work, what positions work, and he was really bold to actually move out when he did. If his opponent had caught him, like if his opponent had a higher army count, for example, and hadn't gone for that 4th base, he possibly could have lost all of those units right there. But he made that decision, and it worked out for him. So.
Yeah, again, I feel like Intense overextended. If he would have fallen back, if he would have just like pushed into him, like stimmed, focused on a couple tanks, and then backed off when siege mode was when they were fully sieged up, he could have just poked it and then just kept reconstructing an army behind it. He has one base above his opponent, and he had a second one on the way. So, very nicely done by Lucky Fool. Very patient. Did not feel any sort of pressure to push out any earlier than he was comfortable. Did a great job. Had great positioning. Built missile turrets out front of his base. Overall, very well played from Lucky Fool.
Yep. Overall, a solid way to play mech, and again, I'm a big fan of mech and TVT. I'm still trying to figure out why that is. I think it's just the Brood War player in me. Anything that resembles StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 mirroring its older brother. I mean, I love seeing the way that the matchups are played when you play a similar playstyle from Brood War, how it translates over to StarCraft 2. Now, obviously, there's no Goliaths or Spider Mines in the game, so it's not quite the same as it was in Brood War, but it's still pretty fun to see, and I love seeing like huge like tank lines actually going against each other and just long chess matches. I like that style of TVT, and I know I'm in the minority here. There's a lot of people in chat right now, they're going like, no, I hate seeing TVTs like that. They take too long. They're boring. I don't think so. I think they're fun.
Are you sad to see Brood War go away in a couple months here?
It's a bittersweet sort of thing, because it's like, I feel as long as Brood War is there, there's a section of the StarCraft community that's kind of holding on to it, that I feel if they embrace StarCraft 2, they could really improve it. Like the whole thing about the Kespa players, right? Them playing Brood War, I feel is hurting esports, and I'm just going to use that phrase just because it's like such a popular catchphrase. Because those guys switching over to StarCraft 2 is going to benefit the scene. All the fans that are such huge Brood War fanatics, really the guys that created esports, the guys that like TeamLiquid.net was founded by Brood War players, by Brood War fans, for that scene. These are the guys that really know what they're doing with esports. They've been doing it for a long time. Having all of that infrastructure now being switched over to StarCraft 2, I feel is a huge thing for the scene. And the longer that Brood War was around, taking that away, I feel it was great for Brood War, but I feel it was kind of slowing down StarCraft 2's progress. So I feel like I'm sad to see Brood War go, but I'm really eager to see how all the infrastructure, all the fan base, all of the players that are switching over, how all that translates over to StarCraft 2, and does it improve the scene as much as I think it will? I don't know yet, but I'm really eager to see what happens, and I'm really excited for the future.
I feel like that was a very, very complete answer. I actually agree with you just about on every single point. It looks like Impulse is going to be sending out Hyper, a Zerg player, and it's going to be on Daybreak. So we're going to have Lucky Fool at TVZ against Hyper on Daybreak. So TVZ on Daybreak, I mean, Daybreak's a very balanced map.
This is not a TVZ. This is not a TVZ. This is a TVH. This is a Terran versus Hyper. This is a Terran versus Hyper on Daybreak. This is gonna be intense. It's gonna be intense, but he's not playing. No, this is gonna be a really cool match between two of my favorite players from either team. You got Hyper coming up from Impulse, and we have Lucky Fool. I've already said that I'm a fan of in TVZ. And the thing is, if Lucky Fool is going to stick with mech timings, this is not a good map to do it on. This is a very difficult map to actually make 2-base mech timings especially work. If you're going to play mech on this map, usually you want to play out a more prolonged macro-style mech play on like maybe 3 or 4 bases. So
yeah, I could see that on this map especially.
Yeah, that is in my opinion, that's a better way to play mech on this map. So I don't think Lucky Fool is going to be doing what we saw from him in the previous game and what I've seen from him previously in other matchups in the season. I think that this map choice from Hyper and this player choice too is going to force him to play differently. Now, whether or not Lucky Fool has a solid base in Marines or Biocenter play for TVZ, I'm not really sure because I don't know him that well, but we'll have to see. This is definitely going to be a test for Lucky Fool, both because of the map and because of the player. This is going to be game number 5 coming up here. Yeah, this is game number 5. No, 4. You're right.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I was like, I missed the game.
I know. I missed the game too. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
So again, I mean, Daybreak for Terran right now, a lot of players are going for an early third CC, going for an early stim, and just sticking to bio against Zerg. And, you know, right now with the TVZ matchup, a lot of people are having issues with it. Timings aren't working properly. They're not able to harass. So a lot of Terran players are just going, you know what, if you're going to sit back and macro up, then I'm just going to play super greedy. I'm going to take a third command center. Most Zerg players don't like to do Bailing Bust, don't like to do any sort of roach all-in, so it's a really smart move.
It is a really smart move, but it's going to have to be a smart move from a smart player on this map. We have spawning up here in the top right location on the map Daybreak. He is our red Terran player. Putting the series up 2-1, he is NRG's Lucky Fool.
And spawning down in the southwest corner, we do have Team Impulse's Hyper as our blue Zerg, trying to bring his team back. I mean, of course, Impulse is still up 2-1, but, you know, you want to keep that going. You don't want to get the tie back up. You want to try and seal another win here.
Yeah, Impulse definitely, even going into this game right now, I know Lucky Fool won that last game, but Impulse still has the momentum in this team league right now, in this clan war. So if Hyper wins this game, he will continue that momentum, but as soon as he loses and this series ties back up, well, then the momentum kind of shifts, because then you have Lucky Fool going up 2-0 against Impulse. So Impulse doesn't want to be in that spot where you've got like a guy who's on a roll, who's just feeling really confident. You want to shut Lucky Fool's confidence down completely in this game. You want to shut NRG's down, like NRG's momentum and confidence down in this game. So can Hyper do this? This is definitely a very pivotal game in this series.
And as well, I mean, after the previous game, I mean, no offense to Intense, but it looks like we do have a quick lag spike here. But to note, I mean, Lucky Fool played pretty dominant in the previous game. He kind of stomped Intense. There was a huge supply disparity, and he engaged at the perfect timing here. Hopefully, Lucky Fool will, come back here.
Oh, man, Lucky Fool.
Is he known for this?
I don't know if he's known for this or not. But, okay, so we might actually lose Lucky Fool and be forced to forced into a regame.
Oh,
yep, that is going to be a regame from, you know, and I know that Caster says just to kind of make the best of a bad situation, but it's better that he disconnected there versus like 20 minutes later, you know?
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. If we were disconnected during a major engagement where micro actually like really comes into play and siege tanks trying to shoot banelings, you know, that's a different story. But if we're that early, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I don't think Lucky Fool thought he was in a losing situation yet.
I wanted to briefly go back to something you said right before we got that lag spike about how Lucky Fool looked like he dominated Intense in that previous game. That it's kind of, I don't want to say that he didn't, but I want to say that it probably looked worse than it actually was, because a lot of that has to go down to, again, the dynamics of mech versus bio. Most games that I've seen of mech versus bio in TVT, it always looks one-sided one way or the other. It always does. You've got bio forces charging into tank lines getting obliterated, or you've got bio forces catching tanks out of siege mode in a bad position, and all the tanks just get obliterated by marauders. I mean, the engagements always end up with one person dominating the other person. Very rarely do I see even trades in that particular matchup. So, yeah, Lucky Fool definitely played that really, really well and definitely outplayed Intense and deserved that win. But I don't think that it was really as one-sided as it may have looked just based off the supply count and the engagements.
And again, I mean, you know, we saw Intense did have a fourth command center invested. He was already on his third base. So, you know, I agree with you. There was a huge supply disparity. But again, a lot of that, I mean, that's 800 minerals that was invested in 2 command centers. So, you know, I agree with you on that. It just seemed like Lucky Fool was so comfortable. He did not care what Intense was doing. He had something in mind, and he was just basically going to get up to that army supply, get on 2 base, and just push when he felt comfortable.
You know, I think you're giving Lucky Fool too much credit. I think he was just like kind of like a deer in the headlights, just like blindly attacking forward. No, I'm completely joking. No, he definitely knew what he was doing that entire time. And you're right, he wasn't phased at all by what Intense was doing. And a lot of that, I think, I had to go back to the fact that Intense was pretty much doing the exact same build order that he was doing the previous game. So if Lucky Fool was like, all right, if Intense does the same thing that he did in the previous game, I know exactly how I'm going to beat it. And that's pretty much how it went.
All right, so let's go ahead and introduce these players. So spawning down in the southwest corner this time, we do have NRG's Lucky Fool as our red Terran.
And it's spawning up here in the top right. We have Impulse Hyper taking that disconnect away from Lucky Fool in the previous game. He is our blue Zerg player from Team Impulse.
Do you think Lucky Fool wanted to be red or on the southwest corner?
Well, he says that he liked that position better anyway. I don't see how that... Daybreak is such a well-designed map that really, at this point, I don't care what position I spawn in on this map. For some reason, like Zelnaga Caverns, for example, I always like spawning in the bottom position. I don't know why. Everything just made more sense on those positions.
Zelnaga Caverns. Are you serious right now? Are we bringing back Zelnaga Caverns?
I hated that map so much, but
I
I'm
think
just
everybody
saying. No, I don't think everybody hated that map, but I definitely know. I like my brother liked that map. He liked that map for Terran, at least. He never liked playing that map at Zerg.
All right. Well, we
right.
do have much more balanced map than Zelnaga Caverns here. Of course, this is Daybreak.
The
Zerg
best
right now.
map in the world.
Yeah, honestly, it's definitely one of the most balanced maps in the pool right now. Alongside, I would say, maybe Entombed. A lot of Zerg players aren't really a fan of it. Antigua's pretty good as well. But overall, I mean, Zergs, of course, are going to go for some sort of early macro style on this map. And, you know, Lucky Fool, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Seeing him go mech on this map, especially in this matchup, probably not as likely, especially given, you know, the map of Daybreak.
It's not as likely, but it's not unviable. I have seen some really solid Terrans win with mech on this map. Most notably is MVP and Alive, the two incredible Miracle players that I love so much for because of their mech play more than anything else. They've made mech work on this map, and I've seen some games go super late on this map with mech. I've seen like heavy Viking transitions into mass ghost, not for snipe specifically, but for like big nuke plays. Like I've seen so much crazy stuff on this map, and a lot of it comes from initial mech openings. So I don't think we're going to see mech out of Lucky Fool. I really don't. It's something that's very unusual on this map. It's not common at all, but it's not necessarily something that's completely unheard of either.
Yeah, it looks like Lucky Fool did pin in Hyper's drone here, and he's got his first Marine out, so he's going to try and take out this drone as fast as possible. And then at that point, we'll probably either see him. I mean, he's got enough money for a command center here in just a second, so probably going to see the command center dropped on the western side of his base here. Of course, there's an Overlord hovering over, just making sure. And he's actually going to build it on the low ground, so very nicely done by Hyper. He's going to see this command center drop as soon as it goes down. He does have the order of position.
Yeah, Hyper was
there
just
we go.
making sure. It was just making sure that this was going to be a command center, and that Lucky Fool wasn't going to drop like 3 or 4 additional barracks or something like that. So good scouting from Hyper. This is a part of his game that is just always so solid. He always has good scouting information. Always really good with his overlords. I mean, Hyper may have some holes in his game. I'm not saying he does, because he's a pretty damn good player, if I may say so for myself. But one thing he definitely has a very good grasp on is scouting, and especially with Zerg. Zerg is almost always the reactionary race, so having good scouting with Zerg is so important.
Yeah, and you know, I like this from Lucky Fool. He's following us up with 2 gas, so we're probably going to see him jump up tech. A lot of Terran players right now are going for 1 Rex expand, but only getting 1 gas geyser, and then dropping a couple extra barracks. So probably going to see. I mean, what are you thinking here? Probably an early factory. We do have another Marine in production as well.
The last time that I saw Lucky Fool play Terran versus Zerg, he went for a Hellion Banshee opening, followed up by upgraded Thors. So it was a Thor, Cloaked Banshee, Blue Flame Hellion unit composition in the mid game. That was on Shakuris Plateau. Now that's obviously a better unit composition for Shakuris Plateau than it is on Daybreak, but it is something that we might see. But we're definitely going to be seeing a Reactor Hellion opening from Lucky Fool following up this 1-rack expand.
You know, what do you think about... Oh, it looks like he's actually might get this Overlord here. He's actually pushing right into it. The Overlord is going to get taken out. Did it actually see? It's all the factory, so he's going to know it's a Reactor Hellion opening. We'll probably see an extra Queen out here. Yep, we already have 3 Queens. 4 Queens off 2 base. You know, this is why, you know, a lot of Terrans are complaining. These 4 Queen builds, these 4 Queens alone are just so strong. They're able to deflect almost anything, and with Transfuses, you can't kill them. You can't harass them. So, you know, is Lucky Fool going to be able to do a lot of damage? It's really hard to say at this point.
What the Queen change really did is it really put an end to the concept of 4 Hellions as part of standard play. Because before, no matter what unit composition you were going for, what build you were going for as Terran, you could make 4 Hellions deny creep for a very, very long time, even if you weren't going to be able to get drone kills. The presence of the Queen range allows a good number, a small number of Queens to deflect a small number of Hellions without losing creep. So it's not necessarily the Queens themselves are breaking the matchup as much as they're allowing Zergs to just get an incredible amount of creep very early on in the game. And creep spread is obviously a super important part of Terran versus Zergs. So, I mean, it's a small change, but it has huge implications, as we've been hearing a lot about lately. I know that I don't even need to talk about it. You guys have definitely read or heard all sorts of different things about it on Reddit, on Team Liquid, on the StarCraft forums. Don't read the StarCraft forums. They're horrible.
So, as you called it, NRG, Lucky Fool is going for Cloaked Banshees with Hellion right now, with a Armory on the way. So we are going to see the Thor follow-up. So, I mean, really, what is the point of this timing, and what should we see Hyper do in order to react to it properly?
I mean, it's a difficult thing to say. It's not something I'm very familiar with actually seeing. Lucky Fool is actually the only person I really have seen that really goes for this particular style of upgraded Thors with Cloaked Banshee. Now, upgraded Thors with Cloaked Banshee, one of the things that, like, if you're going for, like, a Thor timing, for example, the easiest thing for you to do as a Zerg player is going to be like, all right, you're building Thors, I'm going to make Roaches. Well, it turns out, from what I've seen of this build before, Thors with Banshees, you can't kill those with Roaches. It's almost absurd because Thors do so much DPS and Banshees do so much DPS that you actually just completely obliterate almost any number of Roaches. And the same is also true for Queens. Queens can't really hurt Thors. I mean, they have that good range. They are kind of a tough unit, but Thors... One thing Thors are good at killing is Queens. I can make that statement without sounding that stupid, but yeah, Thors are very good at killing Queens, and Thors and Cloaked Banshees too. It's a pretty good unit composition for dealing with a high queen count, because there's not really much you can do with just queens against that.
You know, we do see Hyper going for a lair. He's getting a Baneling nest. Banelings against the composition we're going to see from Lucky Fool. I don't know, man. I mean, with those Thors out there, they're going to be able to eat the Baneling hits, and then you have the Banshees and the Hellions. I feel like if Lucky Fool micros it properly, he'd be in a really, really good spot.
Clearly, J. Morrow, you're not familiar with Nest T and what Nest T does against huge Thor timing, because you can use Banelings against anything. They are the perfect unit in StarCraft. There is nothing that Banelings can't kill that's on the ground. But the one thing all right, so if Hyper actually goes for a big Baneling bust on the Thors, all that leaves is the Banshees. And look how many Queens he has. If he can get rid of the Thors, he can take care of the Banshees and Hellions with the Queens. But we have two Cloaked Banshees actually over here at the third base location. The Overseer is just now being morphed. One Queen actually does go down. The Banshees are going to be able to get a single Queen kill and then get out before they take any more damage to their hull. We have a lot of Zerglings actually out of here trying to catch these Hellions. It looks like they might. Lucky Fool's not paying attention. He's going to lose all those Hellions. He's going to take out a good number of Zerglings in the process, but definitely lose all the Hellions in the process.
And these Zerglings are 1-1. We do have a Roach Horn and Infestation Pit to follow us up, so very nicely done. Of course, you need the Infestors with the Roaches in order to handle a large portion of Thors. Here come the Zerglings. They're going to do a run by here, get on top of this bunker here. There's only 2 Hellions with 4 Marines in the bunker here. These are +1/1 Marines, or Zerglings, excuse me, burning down the bunker very quickly and now getting into the middle. And how much damage is he going to do here?
It's not going to do all that much. That was a lot of Zerglings. He didn't even kill the bunker. Got a couple of Hellion kills and is getting a few more SCV kills, but not even all that many. It's only three SCVs. Only 3 SCVs have actually gone down for Lucky Fool in this game, but he did get a full scout of what his opponent was actually doing. So in case there is any doubt in Lucky Fool, in Hyper's mind of what he was actually facing, now he knows for certain that it is going to be a Thor Hellion follow-up. And like I said before, this is going to be upgraded Thors, and upgraded Thors versus unupgraded Thors are a whole completely different beast. And this also applies to the Hellions too. They're going to have Blue Flame with +2 in just a minute. Vehicle weapons, you cannot use Zerglings against that. They will just get completely fried.
There's no way. He's definitely going to need the Infestors along with the Roaches here. We do have a ton of Roaches in production, +2 armor, and +1 weapons coming out. Roach speed is just a third of the way done, and right now, majority of Hyper's supply is the drones. He has 70 drones versus 60 SCVs. Here comes the 2 Banshees, of course. They do have quite a bit of energy and cloak on them. I really like this timing from Lucky Fool. Again, he does have pre-igniter just about done, but he's going to hit way earlier than +2. I don't think he's going to wait for it here. And Lucky Fool just bringing out as many Roaches as he can. Are there any SCVs to help repair? Yes, there's a ton of SCVs. This is definitely going to help out.
They are on the way, and this is what I was talking about before. Normally you're just able to focus fire the Banshees with the Queens, but you can't do that if there's also Thors out on the field. So Hyper needs to be very, very careful with how he actually controls this. The Marines are actually trying to focus fire the Overseer, but that is a ton of Roaches. So many Roaches actually out on the field for Hyper. I don't know if Lucky Fool is actually going to be able to deal with this with just that small number of units. This is one of the reasons why I said that this build wasn't as good for this map, because it is such a long distance to walk. It gives Hyper that much time, that much more time than he needed to actually get the economy and the production out to produce that high of a Roach count. And so Lucky Fool is going to get completely repelled with this attack. He did lose a lot of SCVs in that also. This is not looking good for him at all.
Yeah, the other Cypher is taking a 4th. He does have +2 finishing. He actually fought that engagement without Roach speed, without +1, without +2. His 4th is now done. He is getting Overlord pickups as well. So, of course, something players always talk about you need against heavy Thor play is to get the drops for the Roaches. You need to be able to drop Roaches on your opponent. So, you know, he hasn't begun. Does he even have Pathogen Glance? Yeah, he hasn't even started Pathogen Glance. +2 is on the way. And like you said, I mean, Lucky Fool's in a little bit of an awkward situation at this point.
He's down 60 supply right now, J Morrow. I was very hesitant to think that he was actually going to go for the same build I saw on Shakura's Plateau. That build takes such a long time to actually get your units out into the same spot, and this map is so much easier to defend it on than Shakura's Plateau is. I mean, even the third base location, it makes for such an easier concave for those roach builds. And that is such a large number of roaches. He has broken down the front door of Lucky Fool, completely just swarming over his defenses, and Lucky Fool calls GG, putting Impulse up 3-1 in this best of 7.
Very nicely done. I thought that was Lucky Fool's fight to take there. He had decent siege tank positioning. If he was able to hold him back while the siege tanks unloaded, he could get a little bit of advantage there, but it looked like the roach count was a little too high, and of course the upgrades were very, very nice on them as well. So it looks like Lucky Fool is going to fall, giving Hyper the win.
The third base location, if you switch mashups for a moment and you think about Protoss versus Zerg, now that's more similar to the dynamic of the third base layout, for example, like the concaves is what I'm talking about here.
Sure.
When you get into that position, when you get into range of the hatchery, by the time that your units are in range of the hatchery, there's a natural concave that forms around the hatchery that he had just a very high roach count to abuse. Now, Thors are pretty good against roaches in small numbers, but not if they have that kind of concave where you're just able to focus fire down the Thors one at a time. Now remember that Lucky Fool had no armor upgrades on those Thors, so the roaches were doing their full damage to the Thors minus the base armor that Thors actually have. In those positions, that's where you need siege tanks. You need siege tanks against a concave of roaches that has that many of them in the concave. He just didn't have enough siege tanks to actually bust that. I just don't think that you can bust the third base location with just Thors in that position. Like, they just don't do enough damage to kill that many roaches.
Yeah, the plus armor definitely would have helped out, along with maybe a little bit higher Thor count, maybe some siege tanks mixed in, definitely would have helped him in that engagement. But it looks like NRG is going to pick a Protoss, so we're going to see the first Protoss of the night. This is game 5 of a best of 7. Impulse currently up 3-1, so I don't know, man. It's looking to be quite interesting. So we're going to have Hyper playing against, we don't know who the Protoss is yet, but PVZ, first one of the night.
And this is the last player that NRG can actually pick if they are going to come away with this series and take the money for third place. Their Protoss player right now needs to take 3 players down, one after the other. This is going to be tough. I mean, Impulse is definitely in a good position right now because after Hyper, they still got Magic, they've still got Deceive, they've still got Emperor. They've got so many good players on their lineup that whoever NRG picks is going to have to be able to contend with not only Hyper, who's good enough as it is, but also everybody else that Impulse can throw at him. So this is going to be a tough matchup. NRG is not in a good spot, but like anything's possible. And that's the nice thing about Team League is that you're able to see those types of brilliant comebacks happen. They happen, and they happen quite frequently, I think.
So in a Protoss shoes right now, what map would you pick? Calm Before the Storm?
I mean, if you're a Protoss player, why wouldn't you choose that map? But we never see that map. And I think the reason why we never see it is because nobody practices on that map. Sure, that map has some inherent advantages that play out in Protoss's favor, but nobody really practices on it because no one ever wants to practice on it. Every single practice game on that map takes 40 minutes. So it's like, no tournament uses this map anyway. So it's funny that ISTL has it in the pool because no one ever really uses it to begin with. I think I've only seen it twice in all of ISTL so far. And one of those games is a 6 pool, so that doesn't even really count.
Yeah, I mean, it's a map, like you said. I mean, people don't practice it for the main reason of it's not used in most tournaments. So, probably won't see that. I mean, it's definitely a good pick, but I don't know. I mean, we can reuse maps here, so maybe Entombed. Entombed's a pretty good map for PVZ, especially in the Protoss's spot.
Yeah, Entombed is that map. We were talking earlier about maps and balanced maps or something. Entombed Valley, I feel, has a critical flaw that I think there is something there. You could take a third base as Protoss on that map so quickly, and then you could just tech up to that Super Colossus Archon Mothership Death Ball unhampered. Like, Zerg can try and break you, but it's very, very tough. So most PVZs that I've seen lately on that map revolve around the Protoss turtling up on 3 base, going for that Mothership right away, going for that Archon Toilet Maneuver right away, and it's very one-dimensional. I don't like seeing Protoss versus Zerg play out that way. And it really only happens on that map because of how easy it is to defend that third base against Zerg ground attacks as Protoss.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. You know, a lot of players are doing that right now, turtling on 3 base. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's very easy to do. A couple of nice force field placement.
You're playing the map, right? You're
Right.
taking what the map gives you. But that's my problem with it, is that the map makes it so that why wouldn't you do that? Like, there is no reason not to. But in this case, we are not going to be seeing Entombed Valley. We're going to be seeing MLG Shakuras Plateau. So even though our players, and again, this is actually kind of funny how players like tend to form habits. They're not repicking maps even though they are available. Just because like this is such an oddball rule that the ISTL uses that nobody else actually does, and players don't go for it even though they could. So we are going to be seeing MLG Shakuras Plateau. I still don't know who we are going to be seeing coming up from Team NRG. It might actually be a Void. No, a Void's a Terran player. No, it's going to be Dime. Okay, Dime actually closed out for them last time too.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what Dime is thinking picking this map. This map is definitely hard for Protoss to take a third. Zerg can really do anything. You can go Infestors, you can go Lings, you can go Roaches, you can go Mutalisks. So he's got to have something up his sleeve for this map. He's got to have some sort of creative timing. Maybe he's got something like Shinya.
This is Dime's map. This is Dime's map,
Okay.
J. Morrow. The last time I saw Dime, he was closing out against StarCraft Ascension. And StarCraft... No, was it StarCraft Ascension? No, it wasn't StarCraft Ascension. It was Metagaming. Metagaming, yeah. He closed out against Legend, who almost pulled a reverse all kill. He just took down 2 games in dominating fashion, and he was the ace player for Metagaming. And Dime comes out, chooses Shakuras Plateau in a PvT, and takes that series and puts his team up in the win column, advancing to the next round. That's what Dime did last time I saw him on this map. Can he do it again? This is going to be a Zerg versus Protoss, Hyper versus Dime, Impulse versus NRG. This is the ISTL third and fourth place consolation match with Vindicare and J. Morrow.
And it's to note, I mean, NRG's team is on the line. Dime has to come out. He has to win this game, and then he has to win a couple more games just to bring it back. So Dime's got a long hill to climb, and based on what you're saying, he seems like the appropriate player to do it.
I mean, he may or may not be the appropriate player. I'm just saying the last time I saw him actually out he did what he needed to do. So he got the job done before. I have no reason to think that he can't do it again, but he is going up against a really strong Zerg player. He is spawning up here in the top right position on the map Shakuras Plateau. He is the blue Zerg from Team Impulse, putting his team up 3-1 in this best of 7. We have Impulse Hyper.
You know, I'm noticing a pattern. You like to call out the Impulse players. You little bias over there?
No, it's just basically I call it the first player that spawns on my screen. So whoever's player 1 gets the first intro.
All right, well, spawning in the northwest corner of MLG Shakuras Plateau, we do have NRG Dime as our red Protoss. Of course, we're just talking about currently down 3-1 on the verge of defeat. Dime has to bring it back against Hyper.
You know, Jay Martin, if I had my choice about who I would like to introduce first in a team league, I would always want to introduce the player that won the previous game.
I
feel like it just leads in.
Sure.
You have the champion and you have the challenger. You know, it's like when you're playing Street Fighter in the arcade, a new challenger has appeared. That's who Dime is right now. He's the guy that just put his quarter into the machine. And Hyper's the guy that's like sitting there like with everybody like looking at him, who's like sweating because every arcade that has ever existed is always like really freaking hot because those machines all generate their own individual heat, and then you have the people inside, they're always cramped. So he's the one that's already sitting there. He's already got his hand up on the paddles. Everyone's looking at him because he like looks like a baller for beating the last guy. And then you've got Dime coming in. He's the kid that just walked up going, I can beat this kid, and puts his quarter into the machine. Did I paint a picture for you? Because that's who Dime is right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I could just a smelly guy with a quarter. That's essentially what I got from that. So we actually saw Hyper do a drone dive on a Dime's probe, and he actually killed it off. So something very annoying. A lot of players are having an issue with, some of the, even in Masters, you get cannon rushed on a map like MLG Shakuras Plateau. It's very easy to wall off using pylons behind the mineral line and then doing harass. So killing off the early probe from Hyper alleviates a lot of stress for him. He's able to, kind of sit back and goes, okay, well, I can get up to my second base now. I don't have to worry about any sort of pylon or cannon harass. So I really like that from Hyper.
Dime doesn't care if he loses that probe, though, Jamar. Look at this. We have a Nexus first coming up here. Now, if you're going to go Nexus first against Zerg, this is the map you want to do it on. This is the easiest to defend natural in StarCraft 2. I'm not even necessarily saying that it's a bad thing. It's just a map feature that is so understood on this map that a lot of timings that might work on some other maps don't work as well on Shakira's Plateau because of how easy it is to defend this natural.
You know, Dime, I really like this. He had some good scouting information early on. He saw the spawning pool timing, and he went Nexus first, Forge, Gateway, second Pylon, and then Cannon. Very, very greedy. So I'm really feeling like Dime's going to go for some sort of two-base play. But I'm just trying to figure out what it is. Of course, we do have the two gas, very standard from Dime, dropping in the main. And the third hatchery does go down from Hyper on the southern side of Shakira's Plateau. You know, I have a question for you. Why do you think players take this third base down here as opposed to taking the one that's kind of closer to the watchtower?
You know, I've actually analyzed that before. I can't find any real strategical reason why. The third base is obviously further away from your opponent, and I think it's just that sort of like mental thing where like Zerg players, and I'm guilty of this too when I play Zerg, you always feel more comfortable expanding away from your opponent than you do expanding towards him. It's just one of those things.
Yep.
And I don't really feel like there's like this position is any easier to defend. In a lot of ways, it's harder to defend. I mean, sure, this third base location is closer to your opponent, but it's also closer to your natural. And you don't have this like huge like big distance you have to cover with creep in order to defend it. If you think about it, it's much easier to spread creep to this third base location that's located closer to the watchtower than it is all the way down here to this third base location over here. But I mean, it's just what we see. I think it's just a psychological thing.
I like the concept of being further away. One thing to note, though, you know, a lot of players do this where they'll run a lot of gateway units up the ramp at the third, and then it only takes 2 force fields to block that ramp, and then you're basically going to lose that hatchery at that point. So I think it really has to do with being further from your opponent. Definitely a smart maneuver, and as well, it's harder to scout, you know, because you can just grab the watchtower in the center to give information. And here comes the stalker from Dime running across the map here, doing a little bit of probe harass. There's only 4 probes here, or 4 drones here. He's going to lose 1, so I kind of like this. There are some speed, or there are some Zerglings on the map, but of course they do not have speed as of yet. First gas geyser is now being grabbed, and actually getting a second probe kill, I believe. Yes, now the Queen is up. Actually, a 3rd drone kill. So very nicely done by Dime, and now he's just going to return home, I believe, or is he going to start focusing down this Overlord?
He managed to kill an Overlord at some point. I think that might have been a scouting Overlord, but I mean, this is Dime's map, man. That's what I was talking about. He is so comfortable with his timings on this map. He knew exactly when Hyper was going to be taking that third base. He knew exactly when the Queen was going to be coming up at that third base, and the fact that his opponent was not going to have drones out on the map. And now look at this. This single Stalker has 4 kills, 3 drones and an Overlord kill on that Stalker. And a second Stalker actually comes out to repel these Zerglings, so he's even going to lose a handful of Zerglings too. Dime is just so comfortable on this map. He has played, I want to say that he's just played hundreds of Protoss versus Zergs on this map. He knows this map inside and out, which is why he chose it.
You know, speed still hasn't been started, and you know, the gas geyser was just now grabbed. So these stalkers are just going to town. Another drone does die, and he's going to pick off possibly a Queen, maybe an Overlord here.
He's going to lose another Overlord. He can't save this Overlord. He's going to try to, unless he transfuses it with that Queen. There's no way he's going to save it. Another Overlord goes down. Some roaches are actually out on the field, but you can't catch stalkers with slow roaches off creep. That's not going to happen. These stalkers haven't even taken any hull damage. One of them has 5 kills. The other one has five also, so 10 kills on that pair of stalkers. They were just walking home knowing that they did their job.
One thing to note, Hyper has scouted the main using an Overlord, did see the blink timing, saw the gateways up to 6 gates, actually 7 gates with blink here. Looks like Dime missed the flag cap for now, not a big deal though. He's getting +2 and chronoing it out, so he's going to go for a timing. Lair has started from Hyper, and is he going to go for an infestation pit here? That would be the appropriate response. He's only on 3 gas, but the creep spread is definitely... He doesn't have a Lair yet,
J. Morrow. He doesn't have a Lair yet. That blink is going to finish before that Lair is actually done if he continues to chrono it. Excuse me, if he continues to chrono it out. He continues to chrono out blink. No, he's not. He's chronoing out probes and such also. So the Lair actually might finish around, before blink is actually done. He's actually going up to a third base behind this. So this is not going to be an all-in from Dime.
I was going to say, you know, with the fact that he's chrono boosting probe still, I'd expect a third base coming out. And now he's moving across the map. He's in good spot. He has the watchtower. Blink is just about done. Has a couple of sentries just in case, you know, mass speedlings run by. And now Hyper's in a very uncomfortable position. Has stopped droning 55 probes to 50 drones. So he's ahead on the count, making Hyper feel very uncomfortable. And now he's running across the map with just a handful of stalkers. Blink is not done yet, so these are going to get surrounded here. A little bit of a misstep by Dime here. He was ahead by quite a bit, but now losing that advantage. And now actually Hyper's ahead on resources lost.
Dime, you lost both of those stalkers that had those 5 kills before. I'm very, very sad. Those stalkers didn't even get a chance to get a free drink from their Protoss buddies for all the work that they did earlier in this game. No worker compensation for the stalkers in Dime's army. Okay,
Or-
so Dime's PvZ is starting to look a lot like Seed's PvZ with this Blink Stalker transition, but it's like a macro Blink Stalker playstyle with a later Colossus timing. Now, the way that Simba was dealing with this before is he would go for a very large number of Hydralisks in the mid game, and that was working out brilliantly for him, and especially with the creep spread that Hyper currently has going out into the middle of the map. I really feel like Hydralisk would be a very good choice if you wanted to be aggressive right now, but Hyper doesn't actually look like he wants to do anything like that. He's making a ton of units, but he's being defensive with them as though he's expecting a huge all-in from Dime. But Dime's just getting further ahead of him economically. The probe count's up to 61 to 50.
Yeah, and Hyper has not taken a fourth base behind this, so I would really like to see that. A huge Zergling run by is going, I guess, running by right now. Has not done anything, scouting up at the normal third. I really like this from Dime. His positioning is very, very nice, but now the Zergling is going to run. Please go to the third. It looks like he's going up the ramp, actually going to get taken out. No, and now he will see the third base, and now Hyper knows what's up. He's going to supply cap here, and I'm guessing he's going to push out here, because, I mean, he's supply capped on a bunch of units that aren't very good in the late game.
This is going to be tough for Dime to hold. Hyper has enough economy that he can throw a lot of units at Dime, and Dime is down by almost 100 supply, and he's actually going to get inside the force field. That is such a huge deal. This game's over. This game's over, J. Morrow. He got inside all of those force fields. All of those roaches are going to go down, and there's the GG. Hyper pulls that game out with a beautiful hug on those stalkers. You guys got inside those forest fields so quick, and it was over like that. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that was such a one-sided game that completely flipped on its head in just a moment. Wow. Wow, Hyper, you are good.
I feel like Dime was ahead by quite a bit, and then he got a little greedy. He went for the +3, which, I mean, nothing wrong with going +3. He did not have enough units, though. I mean, that was very, very apparent. He was not paying attention. Did he have any observers out? I feel like having a little bit of just map awareness or just giving a little bit of vision would have helped him out quite a bit in that stage.
The thing is, I was saying, Dime had that whole thing planned out. He knew what he was doing that entire time. So I can't sit here and say that Dime should have done this or Dime should have done that. He had everything planned out carefully. The only thing that happened is that when that engagement actually started, I mean, that would have been tough for Dime to hold, but it wasn't impossible. He could have held that with good force fields, with continued reinforcements from the high ground and good blink micro. But Hyper he had an opportunity and he just seized it, and with a single cut, he just cut Dime's throat in one blow. I mean, it was I really wanted to see Dime go further just so I could see what his late game looked like, what he was building.
What he
up
would have
to.
transitioned into
something. Yeah, he was definitely building into something. I just could. It's a shame that we didn't get to see it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So hopefully, Dime will learn from it and go. I made a little bit of mistake. Didn't have enough units. So very well played, though. I mean, Hyper, he kind of got in a situation where he's like, well, I kind of have to all in at this point. And in most cases, players, usually end up throwing everything at them, and it doesn't work. But it worked out for Hyper, and if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be it. I mean, Hyper taking the fourth game for Impulse.
That is the series, J. Mario. Hyper comes through for Team Impulse, gives them the victory in this best of 7. So they are taking third place in ISTL Season 2. Fourth place does go to Team NRG. So before we get a chance to thank our sponsors, I really want to get a chance to thank these two teams for competing. They have been spectacular all season long. You guys are great sportsmen. You guys are great competitors. I'm glad I got a chance to cast for you guys. You guys have been great and terrific. I am a fan of every single player that I have gotten a chance to spectate in the ISTL. This has just been great. I'm so honored to actually get a chance to expose the skill level of these great players and giving them a chance to put a little bit of a spotlight on them.
Yeah, and Impulse taking third place, NRG taking fourth place. Tomorrow, though, we do have the finals, and it is MYI versus Western Wolves. So that's going to be an interesting game. Are you casting tomorrow night, or are you actually stepping down?
I don't know yet. I just cast when they tell me to cast. I know that I like to say that I'm a part of the ISTL here, but really they just call me. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, we need you to cast some games." I'm like, "All right, I'll do it." There's a little bit more to it than that, but essentially I'm just a talent. Everybody, all of the real magic for the ISTL is behind the scenes. Thank you to Joker and to Marine and all of our admins and all of our coaches and players. But big thank you especially to Marine. He put so much effort into the production aspect of all of this. But the finals are tomorrow, so everyone make sure that you tune into that. It will be 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on the beautiful West Coast. Tune in for that. It's going to be great. We'll be announcing the winner of the MVP award and the winner of the hour of free coaching that we have been advertising throughout this entire season. If you guys aren't aware of that and you want to get in on it last minute, all you got to do to get an opportunity to win an hour of free coaching from one of these Impulse players like Hyper is follow Team Impulse on Twitter. That is imp_esports on Twitter, and like them on Facebook. That's all you got to do. We will be choosing 2 names, one from each of the Facebook and Twitter list, for an hour of free coaching with these spectacular players on Team Impulse. But also, I want to get a chance to thank our other sponsors. We've got Max at max.studios.com. He is looking for clients so he can do graphic design work for you. You specifically, yeah, you. I'm talking about you. You looking at the camera.
Whoa.
That is Max at max.studios.com, so make sure to check him out. Also, big thank you to Legends of Elveron, the text-based MMO, for their contributions to the ISTL. They are the ones providing that MVP award. And also, big thank you to Impulse Esports and all the people that are on Team Impulse that help make this possible. Also, if you like the music that we play before and during the intermissions for the ISTL, that is by Fourth Angel. You can find them on YouTube and on Spotify. That is FORTH Angel. And another big thank you to all of our players. I mean, this just wouldn't be possible without the players, and they definitely deserve their credit. All right, so I think that will end up doing it for today. Once again, I am Vindicare. You can find me on Twitter at KTVindicare, and also on YouTube and Twitch with the same exact alias. If you would like to send me feedback on my casting, or if you have a show match or a replay that you would like me to cast, let me know and I'll do something for you on my solo stream. And where can they find you, Jay Morrow?
On Twitter and YouTube under JMorrowPro. Same boat. If you like my casting or if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. And I'll be doing a little bit more in the future. I'm trying to get a little more involved. But I appreciate, getting the opportunity to cast, especially with such amazing games, and to cast with you as well. It was a really fun evening once again.
Yeah, you're definitely a lot of fun to cast with, Jay. You pick up on all of my little references here and there. Laugh at my stupid jokes. I know that they're not that funny. They're just you make it work. You make it work, man. So thank you for casting with me. I think this is probably going to be our last cast together. I think I'll probably be casting with, or Joker and Buddha will probably be casting tomorrow if I'm casting at all. So thanks once again to you, and thanks once again to everybody else on that helped make the ISTL possible. So for today, this will do it for today's stream. Please tune in tomorrow. Hit that follow button and follow all of the essential people on Twitter. It really helps everybody out a lot. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
What time is tomorrow?
Tomorrow it will be 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so the same time that this cast today started.
Awesome.
So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time. This is the Indie StarCraft Team League.
Trying to hold us off. The Nexus is probably going to be going down. That one Colossi, and there's some ridiculously lagging. GG!
Nice. And those Vikings are going to focus down. All those Colossi are probably going to go down.
Yeah, he doesn't even have Blink yet.